And welcome back to the channel, everyone. I am Draxxi, your host, Draxxinusam, whatever you want to call me, and we are here playing Dwarf Fortress. This is number 3 in our tutorial series on how to play Dwarf Fortress. So in the last tutorial, we worked on putting our dwarves together so we could hopefully have a successful fortress. So this is after the embark. We've selected our location, we've selected our skills, and now we're ready to start building our fortress. So a couple of things here. As you can see, this is pretty good size space. This is what I will be referring to as the main menu. This is a mini-map. You can definitely use this if that is something that you appreciate. You can always change the sort of setup with the tab button, and this is usually how I play just because I can sort of navigate better. So as you recall, I said that this game is not controlled by the mouse. You can do some things, but it's basically just best to assume that it's worthless. You can't do anything with it. So let me talk about what we're looking at here, because I'm sure if you've never experienced this sort of Dwarf Fortress mode, it's basically nonsense. So let's make sense of some of this nonsense. So this here is probably the easiest to identify, and as you recall, I said how I learned was basically to pick something that I can recognize and sort of build my understanding of the world off of that. So this here is a stream or a brook. Let me take a quick look, and I'll tell you how to take a look. So this is a brook. These are sort of like stagnant pools that happen to be sitting around, and that sort of thing. So that's more water. These red lines are basically just like exposed sand. And you can tell that. I'll give you the command so you can take a look at your own world that I'm sure you've just generated. So, and then, so a lot of these like periods and commas and apostrophes, those are all basically just grass. And so anything sort of standing up tall, like this is a tree here, and this is a tree, and this is a palm, and there's a couple of trees and some trees, and so everything else is basically just grass that's sitting around. So you can sort of see how it makes sense. I mean, I'm sure you're still looking at me like, or looking at the screen like I'm insane. And probably if you are insane if you stared at this enough. But I really like this format. This is how I play my own Dwarf Fortress games. It's how I learned. I didn't really learn about the Lazy Noob pack, which will be in the description below, as well as Dwarf Fortress itself. Both are 100% free. And also a link to the Dwarf Fortress wiki if you ever have any sort of questions. So, okay. So let me get started on a few of the command basics. So basically, to scroll the screen is the up and down arrows, or basically the arrow keys, and it's obviously moves the screen. If you want to move the screen or the cursor quickly, you hold Shift and then use your keyboard, so you can sort of jump around like that. There are 3 options to view things actually in the game. So the first one we will talk about is K, which is basically like just to view sort of a general like view the object. So you can get most of your commands from over here. So if I hit enter again, it'll actually tell me about what I'm looking at. So this happens to be a dwarf, so I can definitely find out more about the dwarf. This here is a horse, so I can hear or read more about the horse. You can't necessarily do that on everything. Like, it doesn't tell me anything about this tree because it's just a pine tree. So, you know, nothing too fancy or anything. But it basically tells you this is grama, whatever that is, some type of grass, I assume. Dog's tooth grass, dogtooth grass, carpet grass, red sand. This is a boulder here, this little infinity sign. So basically where this cursor is what we're looking at. So the next sort of thing that you will want to know to view is V. So you can remember V as basically being viewing units. So like horses, or creatures, or cats, or dwarves. If you want to know more about the actual creature, some sort of living being, V is the option you go to when you're in the main menu. So when you're in this menu over here. And then you can sort of select it, and there's all sorts of options in here as well. And we'll be going a little bit more into that in a moment. So when we actually give some people some jobs. And then the next one we don't necessarily have, just because we have no buildings yet, but so if you ever want to view or change options in any sort of building or construction, that view is Q, and then that will bring up any sort of menus to affect the building. So here, this is our wagon, this flashing guy here, and all of the options for the wagon are here. On X, basically when you have a fortress going, you can basically tear down the wagon so it's just not sitting out there being stupid. You can remove that and you'll get some free logs. Okay, so the next sort of commands I want to go through with you are moving up and down, because obviously if we were only on this level, that would super duper suck, because that's pretty boring. So we can actually go up. So this is up one level, so these are all the tops of the trees, and the next level on this mountain over here, you can kind of sort of see the brook here, and that sort of thing. So we can go up again, and then this is basically the tops of those trees, and this is all just open air. So to go up, you hold down Shift and hit comma, which is also known as the less than sign. So it's sort of backwards. It's basically the caret, or the little thing that you use to make your text hearts. So Shift and then that option will take you up. And basically, to go the other direction, which is down, you hold down Shift and hit period, and that will basically be the greater than. So greater than goes down. So, and you can go deeper and deeper. And you can sort of tell which level you're on over here. And this number, so if we go down a level, it drops down to 142, 140, 141, all the way down. So as you can see, we're pretty far away. We're some 50 levels, now 70 levels away from where we were. So if you're ever lost and you're like, man, I really want to get back to all my stuff, you just hit F1, and that will take you to where your wagon originally was. So if you ever get rid of this and you're still kind of lost, just hit F1 and it'll always bring you back right here. And then you can sort of navigate from there. Sometimes, like, I've had fortresses that go down 20 levels or more, and so sometimes you can sort of like, what level am I on? You just hit F1 and you know where you're at. Okay, so there we go. Those are some of the general commands. So what we're going to do is we're going to start putting together our fortress, because obviously, as much fun as it is to listen to this nice guitar piece, which is actually done by the creators, I believe Tarn did this, and maybe it was Zach, one of them actually played this piece, and it repeats over and over. It starts out being really awesome, but it eventually gets kind of boring. And since there aren't any really other sounds, you can always just mute it in the options here, and then basically listen to your own soundtracks, which is definitely nice, because it's always nice to get a chance to listen to my own music. Okay, so now it's time to actually get started making our fortress. So we want to get as many commands going as possible. When the game starts, it will start as pause, which you can see up here in this corner. To pause and unpause the game is spacebar, and it'll only pause and unpause if you're in the main menu, or if you're in some sort of build selection, you can hit escape and it'll kick you out, and then you'll be able to do stuff again. Okay, so one of the important things in Dwarf Fortress is wood. Wood is used for things like beds, low-quality bolts, which in my opinion are just as okay as the metal ones. They're a lot cheaper, and they still kill stuff. So unless it's like super heavily armored, it's not really that big of a deal. But you basically need it for beds, barrels, unless you're a rich man and can make them out of some type of metal. They also are for low-quality doors, but you can also use things like stone for that. So we're going to want a lot of wood in the beginning, because we obviously don't have any metal to work with just yet. So to do that, a way to remember it is... So the option to do that is in D, and D is designations, which is this guy over here. And this is basically all of the commands that allow you to work with raw materials in Dwarf Fortress. So D is mine, and that's basically mine out on this level. H is channel, which is basically dig a hole and hollow it out. So it'll dig a hole on this level, and it will create an open space on this level to work with. So we'll probably see that sometime later. Stairways are a very specific case, so I will probably do that at some point, because it's kind of a little bit weird. So we'll definitely talk about that in a minute. But what we want is this guy here. So chop down trees. So trees and mining are kind of similar. It's basically like everything, you can select everything on this level. And this works the same way as everything in this menu, basically how to select those. So when you find what you're looking for, which is trees, so you hit T and that selection comes up. You can tell because it's a little bit highlighted here. You basically find where you want to start. In this case, we don't really have any sort of care. Because we set the carpenter as being the only woodcutter, we're not going to really occupy anything important if we have him chop down an entire forest. Note here, don't actually chop down an entire forest. Elves are a type of trade caravan that will come through, and if you chop down an entire forest, they will hate you. Maybe not right away, but if you piss them off enough, they will go to war. They're like hand-to-hand combat warriors, terrible. They're archers, they will shoot you to pieces and you will die. Okay, so back to what we were doing. So when you're chopping down trees, so when you have this selected, you hit enter where you want to start, and you'll see this little like flashing icon means that you have your selection started. Basically, this works by creating a box. So if I move my cursor one up and over and hit enter, it will say everything in this box so this is one corner of the box, everything to the other corner, the opposite corner, is what I want to have done. So if I move over here, so we'll follow this guy for a bit. I'm just going to help point him out so you can see him. And I say here. So everything from this corner over to this corner was in a box, and it was all selected. So this yellow means it's slated for whatever I've told it to do, and in this case it's chop down trees. And say I really like this palm tree here, because, I don't know, I like palm trees or something. If you want to ever remove any of these designations, so if you ever want to remove any of these, you go to X, and that will remove the designation, and then it basically works in the same way, where you select it and hit enter where you want to start, and this little flashing guy will appear, and then you basically create a box of things you want to deselect. So if I wanted to save these trees from getting the axe, literally, and as you can see, they are now back to looking like normal trees. But I am not so nice, so we are actually going to tear down these trees. Or chop them down, whatever you call it. Alright, and you can also change, just as a quick tip, you can also change those options. So as you see now, I'm on chop trees, and I have the selector started. I can always change that mid-selection, and it will do whatever I happen to tell it. So that's just a little quick tip, so you don't have to be like, oh crap, jump out, jump back in, that sort of thing. So now, if I unpause it, my little dwarf, I can't quite see, it's this guy here, he'll go and start chopping down trees until he goes on break or goes to sleep or that sort of thing. But since obviously I don't want to just chop down trees, I want to make our home, I'm not going to unpause it just yet. So now we're going to go to the next item. And usually what I would do is I would take a hill, which is like this guy here. I would drop down a level, so we basically have sheer faces like this, and I would carve into that and make that as our starting point. But unfortunately, we are not so lucky to have a sheer face nearby, and I don't necessarily like to have it far away just because whenever anything happens, dwarves have to haul, in the beginning, everything over. And also, there's sort of some reasons why I'm not using this, and those are basically advanced reasons, but I'll share them with you. So invasions and mega beasts always appear on the corner of the map. So basically, you'll get a notification, a dragon has appeared, or a bronze colossus or something, and they will appear just randomly on the outside of the map. So if I built down here, for example, and took advantage of, say, this face here, I would basically be incredibly close to 2 points on the map. And that's not so big of a deal, but it sort of takes time for your dwarves to react, like when you activate military squads and that sort of thing. So the guy's basically already on top of you, and you still have to put your stuff together. So he'll like barge in and start killing things. And I'll definitely have some tutorials about military and fortress defense and that sort of thing. But basically, I would recommend to stay away from that. So what we're actually going to have to do is we're going to have to create a ramp. And ramps work, basically you can see all sorts of ramps right on this screen, in fact, but we're going to create one that we can actually get in and out of. So ramps are basically similar to stairs, where they basically have an up and a down portion. Unfortunately, we can't see the up portion, so we'll actually use this mountain over here as an example. So these are all ramps. Every one of these big arrows is a ramp. or basically like a slope is basically what it's trying to tell you here. So if the arrow is pointing down, that means the slope is down. And if we go down a level, the arrow is pointing up. So as you can see, like, so our cursor is here, so we'll take a look at the triangle in this square. If you take a look, one square below my cursor, which is right there, they're basically on the same tile. So the ramp is here, and the ramp is here. And that is true of stairs and ramps. The top portion, so like stairs down, which will go down to the next level, need to be on the same level as the stairs up. So basically you have to have stairs connecting from the bottom and from the top. And that way, it'll be connected and then it'll be usable. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but we'll definitely have a case for that, and we'll help you understand that a little bit better. So I have to choose a place to start our lives here as dwarves. So I'm actually going to make it right here. It's central. It's, well, maybe not. There's a puddle right there, and that kind of messes stuff up, because if I try and, like, cut through into this, I'll either have to veer immediately, or I will have to just chop into that, and then all of that water will leak out into the tunnels, and that can drown dwarves or just mess up stuff in general. So we're not going to do that. We're going to put it right... So there are no trees right here. We're looking right here. So we're going to channel right here. And I usually do 3. And that's basically because wagons are 3. Sometimes you can do 4. It's up to you. Really, it's all up to you. You would at least need 1 for units to pass through. But bear in mind, units, there can only be so many units in a place at once. So if you have a fortress of 600 dwarves or something, and they're all trying to pass through 1 square, you're going to have an incredible traffic jam. So it's always good to make them at least a little bit big. So I'm going to go with 3. And so I hit escape to get back out of the designation. So we're doing a channel, so we'll show you what happens there. So here's our one of our minor dwarves. And you can see these flashing, well, they're all kind of flashing, so it's kind of hard to show you. So, okay, so here you see this flashing. So that means our carpenter / woodcutter dwarf, who's right here, that means this is his next job, like his very next job. He's going to walk over there and chop down that tree, unless you cancel it immediately. So that's sort of something to note. It's kind of the same thing over here as well, where it means this is the next thing that's going to happen. So if we watch him, he'll walk over here and he will chop that down. Chop, 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 chop. Oh, and there, he turned it into a log. So if you remember, K is view general, or view whatever's in that case. So over here we're looking, and pine logs. So now we can, if we had a carpenter's workshop, we could turn that into something. And if you look, you can see that we have finished these ramps. So here are these downward slopes or down ramps. And since we channeled, they are met immediately by these up ramps. So these are now connected, and the dwarves can move through them. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut into this a bit. And I always like to, I always think about in future, like, raids and sort of assaults on my fortress, so I don't always start off, like, immediately at the door. So now we're going to do mine, and we'll show you how that works. Mine only works on the particular level you're at. There's actually an advanced technique where you can sort of dig multiple levels, but at the same time, like, you have to have it connected by, like, stairs or something like that. So something to remember. So I'm going to dig out a hallway, and basically, well, we'll come to that in a little bit. So our next highest priority is farming, because obviously we don't want to starve, because that would be bad. We would be very sad dwarves. So we're going to mine all of this out, and you can see, so my dwarves are just going to chop through this. And it's sort of like, why is this so red, Drax? And if you're wondering what you're actually chopping into, hit K, that good old view everything button, and you can see that this is just red sand. So this is of note for when we're actually farming, and something I mentioned in the world selection video that is now very pertinent. So keep that in mind just before we're about to start, and I'll make a note of it when we're actually building our farms. So here we're just digging out a hallway. Yellow means everything we're working on, and of course the flashing means that that's what they're working on next. There's not really a rhyme or reason to it, so the more you select, like if I selected like all kinds of hallways, and the more surface area you have for the dwarves to interface with, the longer projects will take, because they sometimes prioritize the most recent project, but other times it's sort of whatever they feel like. So if you give them too much at once, they might just do nothing at all, and that's not the best. Peat. I've never dealt with peat, actually, so that's interesting. Okay, so I am actually, what I'm going to do, wonder if I'm going to do something fancy. We'll see how it goes. So what I'm actually going to do is, what I'm thinking of is incredibly fancy, but we're not going to worry about that just yet. So I'm actually going to dig it out a little bit farther, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create up and down stairs. So we'll show you how those work. So in designation, if you don't want to build something directly, you can always carve it out of whatever material, and this happens to be sand. Sand stairs seem like that would be terrible, but it works. Sometimes physics in this game is really realistic, and other times it's kind of crazy. So we are going to make down stairways, because if I made an up stairway, it would be connecting to the outside, and I don't want more access to the outside, because that's more things for like baddies and evil guys and goblins and things to walk in my house, and I don't necessarily want them to walk into my house. So first what I'm going to do, this is my own idea of stairs. You're definitely welcome to use your own. You're welcome to use mine, whatever you happen. I have gone through many iterations of how to have stairs, so I definitely understand experimenting a little bit. I found this is the best for volume and for basically just distribution of your fortress in general. So what I do is in the designations menu, so if you want to, like I said, if you want to cut something out of the very land, what we want is downward stairway, because like I said, we don't want anything above us. And then I create a box of 9, so 3 by 3. And then I cut out the middle one, because it always seems weird to have like this gigantic array of stairs. So it's basically like a giant spiral stairway, and when I think about that conceptually, it seems really cool. So just like the ramps, we need these to connect, but we don't actually get a connection without making it ourselves on stairs. So what we have to do is we have to make a note of where we are, so we want all of them to connect. So I'm going to go down one level, and I'm basically going to make a similar sort of box that I have up there. Oops, that's not big enough. And as you can see, that matches up perfectly. So then, since I want something to connect to these stairs, there's 2 options from here. I can do either up-down stairways or up stairways. So if you want to like make multiple stairs all in the same place, that would be an up-down stairway, where it's basically both at the same time. So it has one that goes up to meet any down stairway, and one down to go any down to meet any up stairway. So, and you can chain those together as much as you want. Slight note here, dwarves can trip, and if you have like 300 up-down stairways, they will trip all the way down that, and they will splat at the bottom of your stairway. So I always break them up into about levels of 5, maybe a little bit less if I'm feeling a little bit crazy, but that's just me. So I'm actually going to do up-down stairways, and those are designated by these X's. So that means it's connected here, and if I want, I can also build an up-down stairway below it, or just an up stairway, and then it'll be connected again. So this is basically like if you're making multiple levels, like I said. So we will let them work a little bit. And they dig it out pretty quick, just because, I mean, it's sand. It's like a couple swings of the pickaxe. Alright, so it looks like we are already into... Oh, no, peat. I'm not sure what peat is. Well, I know peat is like some type of clay. Oh, crap. Oh, no, okay. So as you can see, they dug that out, and basically I use these as sort of a little nexus point. So basically, as you can see, it connects to the square on this side, so if I wanted to continue it on the other side, I'd basically do that, and then this sort of thing. So it sort of acts like a central hub, and then you can build rooms and stuff off of that. But we're not quite to that point, mostly because we kind of want to get our food started as quickly as possible, so I'm not going to mess around a whole lot. And I actually am not happy. I usually try and get my actual like living and working quarters in stone, just because you can smooth it and you can make it nice and that sort of thing. So I'm actually going to go down another level. And they're going to dig this out for us. Tetrahedrite. This is where wiki will come in handy. If you see, it says you've struck tetrahedrite down here. And you can hit A, and it'll show you the announcements that appear down there, and it'll also tell you when that announcement happened, 5th granite of the year 2051, or 251 rather, and then you can hit Z to zoom to the location to see where that announcement was generated at. I feel like I had another thought there, but it seems to have escaped me. So, and now it started raining, so that sucks. Dwarves tend to not like to be caught out in the rain, and they sort of have that in their thought bubbles. Okay, so now I kind of have to select where I want my farm to be, and I believe I'm going to test something here. Feel free to not follow me for just a moment, just so I can see that I can use this. Okay, I can use that. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, so I'm actually going to dig down. Yeah, down this way. So I'm going to dig out this way. And we'll build it right here. Okay, so this is the first room that we have created. It doesn't quite exist yet, but I'm going to go through and talk about it a little bit. So when you're actually creating your rooms, be sure to pay attention to a couple of things. Actually, where do I want that? Sorry, I'm doing a bit of fortress planning while I'm doing this. And that's usually a good idea. It's always best to plan out a little bit before you just start chopping into stuff, or your fortress can be really messed up. Sometimes it's just impossible to plan it out enough, so at some point you just have to go with it. Oh yeah, I have coffee. Awesome. But anyways, so one thing to note is sometimes when you're cutting into walls, you always want to leave this, and this basically acts as the wall for this room. So if you're following my cursor here, sometimes walls are not necessary, sometimes they are. It's basically up to you. But they're going to chop this out for me. As we slowly watch them chop diagonally. I don't know what it is with them and digging diagonally. It's like it's like a quirk in the programming that they happen to prefer diagonal movement and mining over other forms. But this is going to be our first farm area. Depending on how big your fortress gets, it can definitely get several or gigantic ones or that sort of thing. So hopefully they clear it out soon, because we want to definitely get started on food. Alright, so we're almost done here, but we have a corner of the room anyway. So what we're going to do is we are going to build our very first farm plot. So what we'd need to do to build any sort of structure, like, basically think of a lot of these as like tiny little shops, like a carpenter shop. You have to build. They have to be able to, or a workshop. They basically need all their tools and benches and that sort of thing in one place. And farm plots are no different. So whenever you think, okay, they need to build a place for this person to work, it's a really easy. B is for building. I know, pretty tough, right? So here is the list of everything in building, and you can definitely go through, and if you ever wonder what any of these are, and you're like, man, Draxxinusam never told me what this is, you can always, that's what the wiki is for. I obviously can't cover everything because there's just so much in this game. I'll try and cover what I can when I can, but the wiki is a good resource. I use it to this day. So what we're actually looking for, so there are a couple of things to note. Beds are in here, seats are in here, doors are in here. Containers, tables, workshops is a very important one. Remember, workshops is in the building menu. That is pretty much the bread and butter of your fortress, pretty much literally. Furnaces, also very important. There's also fancy stuff like glass and gem windows. You can build like tracks for mining carts, machine components, supports if you're afraid of cave-ins. We'll go into that later. But what we're looking for is farm plot here. That's this guy here, and obviously you follow it across, and so the command is P. So also, I just remembered that you can navigate menus, and it's always, depending on the menu, it's always a little bit different. So in this particular menu, plus and minus on the number pad are what will scroll through these. So you can see the sort of white passing through so you can see what I'm selected on. So you can either find the hotkey, which is this listed here, or you can actually go to it and hit enter. So just remember, plus and minus on the number pad is how you navigate this particular menu, or finding it yourself, one of those. So we're going to go to farm plot, and so we see some information here. So farm plots are not like designations. They are basically buildings where you have to designate them. So to do that, U and M, so this is just like the selection we saw on the world map, U and M basically changes the height. So U is increase in the up-down, and M is decrease. So that's up, increase, decrease, increase, decrease. And K and H are basically increase and decrease in the left-right direction. So K is increase. So as you can see, and there is a limit to how big you can make these, but you can make them like just absolutely gigantic. So woo! See, I can. Don't make it that big. Do not make it that big. But anyways, I usually go with 4x4, maybe 5x5, depending on the dimensions, because I'm kind of a little bit crazy. So let's see. It's 4, 4. So it looks like we'll have a space of 2. Ah, crap! That sucks. I gotta think about down here as well. Yeah, that'll be fine. Not the best, but it'll work. So I'm gonna build a 4x4 plot. So once you have it designated to the size you want it, you find where you want to place it. For me, it'll probably be in one of these back corners. I like things to be really symmetric and make sense, not just like, oh, here's an open space, it'll go here. So go ahead, and when you find where you want to put it, go ahead and hit enter, and you see it'll start flashing. It is not ready to be used yet. Our farmer will have to come and create it. So I'm going to unpause it, and we're going to let these guys keep digging, and we'll wait for our farmer to show up and do his job. So here's our farmer. He's walking over here, and he's like, all right, well, let's put this crap together. So he's plowing it, or tilling it, or he's doing something. He's making it farmable somehow. Okay, so one thing I forgot to mention, unfortunately, a little bit before, was farms can only be created in certain areas. So, like, for example, if we go and we build a farm plot and we bring it out here, it says, no mud soil for farm, mud is left by water. So, if you think you're awesome, feel free to try this, but you can basically go somewhere with no soil, which is basically sand, peat, loam, or clay, which basically is stuff that innately, by its nature, they sort of assume has natural water in it, so you won't actually have to irrigate it. So if you see, we come over, if you remember, this is all red sand. If we come over here, you see those warnings disappear. So if you want, it would be really dumb, but if you want, I could definitely build a farm, like, right in the middle of the road there. So I don't have to irrigate something. If you're working with stone, which is this guy down here, what you'll basically need to do is figure out how to get at least 1 out of 7 levels of water there and get it to disperse. So if we go to water, you can see it has this little thing here where it says stagnant water 7 of 7. So there are 7 sort of quantities of water in that spot. And so if you can get just 1 of 7, it'll eventually evaporate and leave mud. And that will basically be how you irrigate. So that's why I always recommend to make sure you have some soil, so you have something to construct farm plots on right off the bat. And you usually, unless you're playing a hardcore version or a hard mode for whatever reason, you also always want those inside the fortress. It sort of, where you have it sort of relates to what you'll actually be able to grow, but we're assuming again that you're a new player and you don't necessarily want the kind of challenge that growing outside will do for you. Okay, so our farmer has put this farm together, and it looks good. It looks just like it should. So good work, farmer guy. You're promoted to senior farmer. Haha. So if you remember, I said to view items. So V, or K rather, is view general item. So like I can come over here and it says farm plot, hooray! And I can over here and it says peak cavern floor, hooray! And this is also as a side note, this is actually how I started to learn what stuff looked like, is with cave floors. And I'm like, oh yeah, you can see how it really looks different, and it's kind of like just a messy sort of floor thing, and that's how I started to learn. But so K tells us what we're looking at. So here we're looking at Etor Tor's Redodal, or whatever. He's a farmer. And here we can see that this is a farm plot. So V is what we would select if we wanted this farmer to do, or if we just wanted to look at this farmer and maybe change him around or learn a little bit about him. But, as you can I hope that you realize, this farm plot is neither something we just want to look at, nor is it a person. And since it is something we built, we actually have to hit Q. So if you remember that, I told you would come back to a little bit later. So here we are. So when you hit Q and you get close enough, we basically see the options that we can control this farm with. So here, there are a couple of things to note here. You can destroy it if you think you put it in a dumb place by hitting X. If you don't want to do anything with it, you can hit Escape, and that'll basically kick you out back to the main menu or whatever menu you happened to be on before. Up here is the things that you can plant in that field for that entire season. So you can see the seasons are down here, and what you can plant is up here. So that sort of goes back to what we brought with on the Embark. So here, we're on spring. You can tell because it's a little bit more highlighted. You don't have to really worry about the fallow or the fertilize or the seasonal fertilization, that sort of thing. That's kind of more advanced, and you'll learn about that on your own, I'm sure. Or maybe I'll do a Let's Play or a tutorial about that. But we're only trying to grow food to not die. So dimple cups, they are used mainly for dyes. Quarry bushes, they're an okay source of food, not the best. I would not start with this unless you are a hardcore player. It's basically used for oil, and it can be used as just like a food, like off the bush. Oh, yeah, no, okay, I said that right. So sweet pods, basically they are used you basically process them into sugar, and then those sugars can be used to make like rum, and or it can be used to cook things. Plump helmets are a type of mushroom. They can be used for everything. You can turn them into meals, you can process them into alcohol, which dwarves love, or you can eat them straight. So, and they grow quickly, and they're not a temperamental type of bush that or a crop that need a lot of attention. So what you want to do, so plus and minus are what change the selection here. Like, see, I can't click anything, it doesn't change. So plus and minus will move you through these menus. So we're going to go to plump helmets, and we're going to say plant this. And from now until the end of forever, this farm plot will grow plump helmets in the spring. So whenever it becomes spring, they'll start planting plump helmets in that field. So if you go to summer, the options change a little bit. So we've already talked about dimple cups, quarry bushes, and sweet pods. Cave wheat is sort of similar to quarry bushes in that you can basically process it into a type of food, or you can process it into a type of alcohol. Sweet pods are like that, I mean. Pigtails are not edible, and you can't process them into food. What it actually is how you create fibers. So like for string, for cloth, for bags and clothing and all that sort of thing, you need pigtails. So all of these are pretty important, but I would say, I'm a big fan of pigtails. But we're going to have problems with food, so we're going to basically say plump helmets again. And then autumn, again, more options, but I'm going to say just go with plump helmets. When we want actually other types of crop, we will actually build those plots and have them go there. So as you can see, now if we hit V, we can see what job our farmer is on. Currently he's on no job, but that'll soon switch to plant, and so he will plant things there. One thing, oh, see, there, his job switched, so now it's at plant seeds. So that means we did it right. Alright, So, we've gone a bit long, so I think we'll stop there, and then I will see you in the next tutorial. I hope this has helped you guys get started with your own fortress. Thanks for watching, and I hope, like I said, this helped you out a little bit. I'm hoping for the sort of thing where people are watching my video and playing along at the same time. Drop a like, subscribe, or comment if you want. Tell me if you actually how you were doing, how's your own fortress going, if this actually helped you out, that sort of thing. And then we'll see you next time. So thanks for watching, everyone, and I will see you here at the next tutorial. Bye now.